Hello and welcome. I am getting this live stream started. I will be starting a training for professionals on the Therapy That Works Unifying Framework for Psychotherapy. And you can also, if you would prefer, join the live event on Zoom, which you can. I'm going to put the if you want to get the continuing educations and all that good stuff. I am going to go ahead and put this link to get CEs right in the description of this live stream, and hopefully you all can find that. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that real quick. And I'm seeing here, there's this, oh, here I can add my video. Awesome. Okay, let's see what YouTube's gonna let me do. Here we go. Get the CEs free, and they will be free through February 3rd. Here we go. Awesome. So that is there. And now that I got you all on YouTube live streaming, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of the folks going on Zoom. So you're free to watch this on YouTube, or you can join me on Zoom in the webinar using the link below. You need to register for the workshop, and then you'll be sent a link. Awesome. We're getting started. Here we go. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the introduction to the Unifying Framework for Psychotherapy. So if you are joining live, please go ahead and put your name in the chat, where you are joining us from on the planet, and why a unifying framework for psychotherapy interests you. Like what excites you about it? Okay. Awesome. So please go ahead, let us know where you're joining us from and why you're interested in a unifying framework. Awesome. So let's see. Here we go. We got Adita from, wow, okay, sorry, they're coming in so fast I can barely read these. From snowy Dallas. Yes, I believe half the United States is having a pretty severe snowstorm. And so I'm just glad you have electricity and you're able to join us. Georgia, Mississippi, Houston, South Pasadena, pretty sunny here, I have to admit. We're doing our California weather today. SoCal, Guyana, Orange County, Michigan, McAllen, Texas, New York, Houston, Clarkville, Tennessee, Orange County, California, Pennsylvania, Fresno. I actually used to teach in Fresno. Central Minnesota, studying for the licensing exam and excited to incorporate this. Oh, so glad. Yeah, you're studying for the exam. You know, I actually have started integrating this framework into training people who are trying to memorize 20 theories for their marriage family therapy exam, which I totally think is an insane number of theories to memorize. But hopefully this unifying framework for those of you in grad school, those of you studying for licensing exams, and actually anyone who knows a bunch of theories, it does help you organize them all at one time in your brain, which can be super helpful, is all I have to say. Even folks, seasoned clinicians who often have been trained in multiple theories find this unifying framework just helps them synthesize it and use everything they've learned at once. And I know in graduate school and licensure prep, you're just happy to have a system to put them all into. San Diego, Franklin, Tennessee, icy and cold in Tennessee, yes. So yeah, and Dawn's here just because she loves to learn and grow as a therapist, and I'm excited about today. I think you're gonna all walk away with some really useful things that will help transform your practice. We got Rita from Washington, D.C., Utah, Bethany in North Carolina, braving out the last of Fern. I'm interested in because I'm halfway through my clinical internship for MFT. Love it. Adita is a professor in MFT and always looking for ways to make things easier for students. I really think that this framework, and I started introducing it in my 4th edition of family therapy mastering competencies in family therapy. But, for both counseling and family therapy theories, and especially for the professors and students, that, this framework, and we'll talk about what's called second wave integration, is really so helpful because, what we dump on students. I know when I ran my graduate program, I think I had about 25 different traditional theories, modern theories, and evidence-based treatment, models in my program, because what the licensing boards want and what's traditional, we were in a nationally accredited program, what the accrediting bodies want, and then what the field site and the employers want are all really different. And so to make everyone happy, I ended up with 25 theories in my own program, which I think is insane. But it was like what was necessary to make all the stakeholders happy. And I think the people who were least happy, well, the students had this mixed reaction. It was great that they knew it all, and they also were overwhelmed. And so we'll talk about that today. But I'm glad that there's some faculty here. I saw some faculty logging into the program online. And so it's great to have faculty here because I also think it's going to make your job easier. Amanda from NSU in Florida. Brenda, Port Isabel, here to inquire knowledge. We got folks from Tustin, California, Washington State, New Jersey, Georgia, I got Sharon who's a supervisor. I love this unifying framework is very helpful for supervisors because nowadays students come in mentioning theories we've never heard of as supervisors, and so we've got to figure out how it connects with what we already know. The good part is, every new theory is really built with pieces of other theories, right? And so once you have a system for how to connect all those dots, it really does become easier. And certainly as a supervisor, as I have found many times, I was very happy that I had a framework. Zion National Park, Utah, I love it. St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay, a lot going on up there. Nina, great to have you here. Billings, Montana. See, in Montana, it's always cold, so I don't know if they're getting this particular Arctic blast, but yeah, great to have you here. Duke at Harding University. He's here because he doesn't want to learn 10,000 frameworks. I love it. Great to have you here. You're after my heart and soul right there. Bianca in Houston. Love it. Alabama, Ontario, Canada. Yep, looking for feeling confident in a helpful structure. Pennsylvania. Sarah is here. Texas. Yeah, so we got folks from all over. We got Bridget from New Zealand. Okay, it's Monday morning in New Zealand. Great to have you here, and I hope it's not too early for you. Got Texas, California, San Diego, Oregon, Big Bear Lake. Love it. Awesome. Georgia, Williamsburg, Virginia. I went to William and Mary. I love it. Oh, Barbara, you're the one. She's got a broken arm. She texted. Yeah, she's using this for licensing exam. Love it, love it. I was actually a balladeer in Williamsburg, Virginia. In fact, last night I was talking with my son, and I was telling him I sang folk songs to pay my way through college in Colonial Williamsburg. He's like, "You never told me this." I'm like, "I'm sort of a professional musician. I made money, regular money." I forget about that part. As you get older, you forget about these past lives we all have. So awesome. Sergio is excited about this because struggling to conceptualize and knowing where to go. So yeah, I really, hopefully this gives clarity. I love it, love it. Michelle from Las Vegas, in her master's program, yeah, getting insight to help with competence and learning, as we go. And I think no matter where you are in your professional journey, whether you're just starting out, whether you've been doing this for years, I think you're going to walk away from today's workshop with a lot of grains of, nuggets of wisdom. It's funny, I have been working on this PowerPoint and I keep adding and adding, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been teaching this now for many years. I've done this variations of this workshop many times, but it keeps getting better, and I'm excited about today. I hope you're as excited as I am. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to pause. I think we got everyone logged in here. It's great to have you all here. I can see that there are about 100 more comments I haven't gotten to. So yes, but a lot of you are joining under sheets of ice and snow that are not normal where you live. But it's great to have you all here. I know we got folks from around the world. And I'm going to jump in and get started because I'm really excited about today's workshop. So let's go. So we're going to just talk about what is a unifying framework and how they work. And we are seeing them across multiple disciplines. And actually, I was just noticing, I'm like, wow, it looks like unifying frameworks really became a thing during the pandemic. I guess we were all sitting home with nothing to do. And some people baked bread and others of us decided to make unifying frameworks across multiple disciplines. You will see that. We will talk about some of the really unique challenges of doing this work in the 21st century. You know, I've been doing this work for about 3 decades, and all I can say is the last 5 to 10 years, you know, the challenges our clients are facing, the instability and uncertainty in the world around all of us in multiple levels and multiple angles, it really does change how we have to work. And I really do believe that. And part of this model, if you hang with me, you know, for the hour, this is an hour and a half, you know, we really need a different definition of mental health in the 21st century. And I really stand by that. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, that it's not all the methods that the original 20th century aren't, you know, there's still a lot of usefulness in our traditional theories from the 20th century. But just how the 21st century has changed the type of problems, the number of problems, the complexity of problems, and our ability to even feel like we have a sense of control in our lives has really shifted. And we as mental health professionals who are tasked with stabilizing society psychologically and relationally, we need to really stay ahead of where we are as a species, as a society, in our communities. And it's different. It is really, I've been doing this work for a long time, and I can say that I've really had to change my methods to adapt to the last 5 to 10 years. And we'll be talking about that. We'll be also talking about what are called second wave integration theories in psychotherapy, and this unifying framework is one of them, but I'll give you a little introduction to a couple others so you just kind of get a sense of what's going on in the field. We'll talk specifically a little bit about the evolution of the therapy that works unifying framework that I've been developing. And then I'm going to walk you through the 6 components of this specific second wave integration model. It's really not a therapy theory. Theories explain why people do what they do. A unifying framework is super practical, and what it does is it just helps guide it gives you a single system that you can use with all your clients of what to do, what to say, how to conceptualize, and how to intervene with clients. And so it's a system of doing. So it's a framework. That's why I can't call it a theory, but it allows you to integrate, and that really, this one synthesizes and boils down all the different theories into a very streamlined method. It's a method, it's a system of doing. And that's how this is different than a theory, which would explain why people do what they do. And based on that explanation, we develop conceptualizations and interventions. So that's what a theory is, where these unifying frameworks are different. And then we'll just talk about where to go from here, depending on where you are with your journey. So, and there will be an invitation if you want to learn more. And if not, I'm just glad you're here, because I think there's really something that everyone, regardless of where you are in your professional journey, can get from understanding that, you know, the whole field, and actually every field, is moving towards these unifying frameworks. I do have an opportunity, if you're interested, immediately following this session, you can join me for what's called a live simulation. It's a mixed reality simulation. I don't tell you how this technology works because the research says it's not the best thing. But if you want to join, it's $29. It's immediately following. You get a half-hour break between this workshop, but we're going to practice using this approach. And so if you're interested, this is an incredible experience for getting live supervision. And I try to make this, you know, really accessible and affordable a couple times a year, and this is one of those 2 times. So if you've never done live supervision, you've never done mixed reality simulation, it's we work with this client, we're able to pause, we send the client away. I'm your co-therapist. I tell you what to say, you get to say it. We have a great time. We laugh a lot. We have a good time, and you learn a lot because, there's something about pausing a session and like learning how to say things, and I will pause and point things out and show you what to notice. And so this is a really fun way to do it. And even if you've been doing therapy for years, a lot of advanced clinicians have told me it's so much fun. It's like Disneyland really for therapists. And and just validating and like getting a sense of what quality therapy should look and feel like. And there's a lot of, it's very confidence boosting wherever you are in your career. Okay. So CEs and handouts. So you will be able to, after you watch this workshop, you'll be getting an email in the next 24 hours about how to log into the online portal. There's a very brief quiz that shows that you were paying attention while I talked. It is not hard. It's just, were you conscious? Were you awake? And then there's a brief course evaluation, and then you'll get an email, and the email is your certificate. You'll see that there's my signature and all the numbers and all that good stuff. It's an hour and a half of CE hours. And then also, just to kind of go over the learning objectives for the course, you will be learning 6 elements of the Therapy That Works Unifying Framework. There'll be 4 levels, kind of conceptualizing interaction cycles for both the problem and the solution. It's a very streamlined system. And the third thing is here, learning how to better articulate, how to relate to clients in ways that really minimize our bias and increase understanding from within the client's meaning-making system. So those are your learning objectives for today. So as I am talking, you can go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A, and I will take those questions at certain break points along the way, as well as at the end of today's training. Okay, so unifying frameworks, what are they? They are a single framework that organizes diverse perspectives into a single streamlined system. And the main way that these frameworks are built is that we look for overlapping concepts that are labeled differently in different theories, and we find a single word and we put them all together to make a streamlined system. And as knowledge is expanding in all disciplines, right, around the globe, most disciplines are developing these unifying frameworks because the average, human mind can't track all that information. And so this is why we're seeing so many of these develop in this particular decade. So if you look in the field of psychology specifically, there aren't, I think I'm the only person in psychology or in psychotherapy that is using the term unifying framework, but within research psychology, there's been a greater need to have unifying frameworks because you can't coordinate research across multiple research teams without having this unifying framework so that when one researcher does a study, the next one can build off of it. And so, today's scientific research is really is really best thought of as like a several thousand piece puzzle, with each research team and each research study is one little piece, and they keep connecting them together to look for broad patterns and themes. And so research is really a global effort at this point in history. There are, whatever area you're studying, there are multiple teams around the globe studying it. And so that's why having these unifying frameworks helps coordinate the research. So there's a unifying framework for well-being constructs and like positive psychology. There's a unifying framework for factors of visual attentional processing. So how we, process visual information. They've had to create a unifying framework to coordinate that. There's a unifying framework for individual differences in mental representations of emotional processing. Doesn't that sound fascinating? God, there's just so much to learn in today's world. There's another unifying framework for trauma memory process and PTSD. So this isn't even on the treatment. This is just the research to understand how trauma memories are processed. There's so much research going on there. They had to create a unifying framework for that as well. So you'll see this in the research literature that you can't even coordinate now. the amount of knowledge we have without unifying frameworks for these look how specialized these areas are. These are crazy specialized. And then you're also seeing it in other disciplines. First and foremost, there's a unifying educational framework. So there's so many theories in the field of education that they're using a unifying framework to help organize it in education. There is a separate one for early childhood education. There are a ton of them in computer science, structured analysis, and design models. There's a unifying framework for just software engineering. Again, computer science had so many, I kind of lost track. We've all heard of unified field theory in physics, that one's been around for a long time. But again, in physics, trying to pull all this information into a single coherent theory to just understand, the various kind of levels of physics. So unifying frameworks we are seeing across all the different disciplines because humans have just created so much knowledge, and it is just impossible for our little human brains to manage it all and to really become a master at what we do and to use all the knowledge available to us to handle what are increasingly complex client presenting issues. These frameworks are really are necessary. So let's go ahead and look at this question. At least I'm claiming they're necessary. I'll let you decide. But do we need a unifying framework in psychotherapy? So the first thing to know is that we do have over 500 psychotherapy theories, and that's a lot. And the average, most of our licensing exams, whether you're in psychology, counseling, family therapy, or social work, have 16 to 20 theories on them, right? Most of us can only get trained in a couple of these really at any level of depth. So the demand, for knowing theories and what's expected of us is kind of ridiculous. When I took my first licensing exams, I took them in counseling and family therapy back in the last century. There are about 8 theories, maybe 10 on each exam. So it was half of what people are needing to know today to pass their licensing exams. And those of you, I know we had several folks saying that they're working on their exams, studying their exams. It's a lot. It's too much. I have done research in the area of licensing exams with my colleague Kevin Linus and his doc students at Antioch, New England. And one of our recommendations at the end of the research study was like, we need to trim this down. And so, but 500 theories, it's a lot. Now, you can ask yourself, is having 500 theories to choose from really a problem? Certainly I'm a theoretician. There was a time where I may have said no, but so what's nice about having all these theories, there's a lot of freedom. There's a lot of flexibility for us as clinicians to choose something that kind of resonates with us. So we have a lot of choice, right? We have a lot of freedom and choice, having all these different options. But let's get real. There are a lot of downsides. One is there's a lot of confusion, right? We've got, university faculty here, and what to put into your program or into an individual theory course and what not to, right? Theory classes become like the flavor of the week. The faculty are exhausted teaching 12 to 15 different theories. The students are totally confused by the end, right? It's like overwhelming. But that's what it's become, right? Because you can't, what do you cut out? How do you cut it out? And so it's also confusing for clients. Clients who are now looking for therapists have to educate themselves on at least 20 to, the 20 to 50 major, whatever evidence-based treatment for whatever presenting issue they have. So even clients are struggling, to find therapists and just, do I go psychodynamic? I've heard of that. Do I go to CBT? And what's this DBT thing? And do I need family therapy? And what kind of family therapy? And, do I need a solution model? I don't know. What about humanistic? I've heard of Carl Rogers. So even clients are very confused, and they're like researching, psychotherapy theories to find the right clinician for them. It's a lot. And there's some people who feel like, oh my God, this is so confusing that, they get overwhelmed and don't even want to, come and go to psychotherapy. Other ones will say that, oh my God, this is, really kind of crazy. This field is totally disorganized, because when you go to a medical doctor, you generally know what's going to happen. But when you go to a psychotherapist, right, clients really, you could have someone who's super structured, you can have someone with no structure. It's like all over the board. And so when I talk to clients, for them, it's just really like, it seems like a very confused, chaotic profession because we all do things so differently, which they're pros and cons, right? But the one thing is that having all these different theories, we do know contributes to burnout, and burnout in this field has just skyrocketed over the last decade. And even before the pandemic, burnout has always been high in mental health, and it is just off the charts. So let's look at that. So, in several recent surveys, when they survey mental health professionals, 52% of us say that we are burned out. I mean, that's crazy. That's not okay. That is a profession in crisis. 46% have clinically measured levels of anxiety. 36% of mental health professions have clinical levels of depression. And there was one survey, I think this was in 2022, so it's the tail end of the pandemic, but 38% of professionals during the pandemic, when we all got to stay home and, do telehealth, 38% said they plan to leave the field in the next 5 years. That is a profession in crisis, and I think this is something we really do need to take seriously. In the research studies, and these are even pre-pandemic, evidence-based treatments have been a significant part of burnout. Post-pandemic, a lot of the reports are actually just, clients are just harder. It's like hour after hour of high crisis, multi-problem clients that don't have a lot of hope, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work getting through these sessions. And so, we really are a profession that is totally overwhelmed. And I believe as an educator in this field that and a trainer in this field of even advanced clinicians, I do a lot of mentoring of even advanced professionals, is that we do need to find a better way because this is not okay. I mean, I think we have the most amazing profession in the world. I love what I do. I've been doing it for over 30 years. I still look forward to going to work. I come home, jazzed and excited. And it is not okay to me that, at least half of us are totally burned to a crisp, and depressed and anxious ourselves. And so this is really something I think we all need to be looking and thinking about and taking very seriously. And let's look at just the fact that our clients are more distressed. And this is measurable. This is not just subjective observation, which I think most of us have been practicing could say. Yes, our clients are more subjectively distressed. So if for those of you who saw my TED Talk at that time, which was, I guess, 2 years ago, 13% increase in mental health post-pandemic, it is now 25%. So in the 2 years since I did my TED Talk, the latest studies are saying there's a 25% increase post-pandemic in mental health. So it just keeps going up and up. Anxiety and depression globally is 25%. Trauma is 1 in 5 people on the globe. You can read the news, it makes a lot of sense. We have just skyrocketing levels, unprecedented for most of us. Political and societal crises. We've got war, war and polarized politics around the globe, right? We have destabilized communities, society, and even the whole world order, as of last week of the filming of this training. So, all of that destabilization of we are herd animals. We find emotional and mental health security in others and in our communities and relationship. And so to have this much instability in our communities, in our politics, in our nations, in the relationship between nations, right, is extremely stressful on all of us. On top of all of this, we have, incredible financial and career crises, the cost of living and housing, and now we have AI upending the workforce and hiring, unemployment. College graduates are just struggling to find work. Not in our field, but look at the first bullet, that is why. But this financial, instability is adding to all of this uncertainty. And uncertainty is the root of anxiety. Anxiety is all about feeling uncertain, unable to control your environment enough to feel mentally, psychologically, cognitively safe. So uncertainty is the source of all anxiety. And we have multiple, it's like almost every angle of our world is coming at us is uncertain, right? We have on top of that natural disasters. Half the people probably listening today are sitting in the middle of an unprecedented ice storm where they live. Snowstorms, blizzards. So, I live here in the Los Angeles area. We haven't even started recovering from the fire from a year ago. So, just unprecedented disasters, and that are also extremely unsettling. I live here in Southern California. I live very close. I could drive through Malibu at least once a week. It's unrecognizable from my entire childhood. Entire communities have disappeared, and so it is very unsettling. These natural disasters. Many of you have experienced it and are experiencing it probably today, right? And of course, we still have the after effects of the global pandemic. There were 3 million people, so those are 3 million families, right? Multiply that times probably 4 or 5 who've had lifelong loss. Very traumatic, complex grief with all of those, and just the long-term impacts of lockdown on our youth who missed years of socializing and normal development and education, and many social networks. I mean, some of the long-term effects are that many people never got back the same size and the same quality social network and relationships, friends, family, partners, these are really critical. I know we like to think of ourselves as super independent, but we need relationship to be emotionally well. And so many people have lost that, and hence we have this dramatic increase in mental health issues, and it's all compounding. It's all compounding. And who do people look for to get them through these types of, societal wide traumas and crises? They look to us. We're supposed to stabilize the whole society that is in total crisis at a level that we've never seen before. And so when you look at our dilemma, right, we have clients with much more complex, difficult problems to treat. During the pandemic was the first time as an educator I had to go to my field sites, and I'm like, you can only give my students one suicidal client total at a time. Like, I was having students where their whole caseload was self-harming and suicidal, right? And they're doing this therapy with, school-age children and high school, adolescents. Every last one of them is high crisis. I'm like, this is too much to give a new clinician. But so many of you listening here who are new clinicians, you know what I'm talking about, right? You're just getting these caseloads that are jaw-dropping to even those of us who've been doing it for 30 years. So we have very complex cases that are unprecedented. And we do have a ton of tools. We've got 500 different theories, folks. This is great, isn't it? But we've got all these tools, which is great. But we really don't have a master plan for, how to put all these tools together for these different clients. Most people, what they experience, you go to school, you learn one set of therapy theories, you go to your field site, you learn something totally different. Then you go get a job, after college or after grad school. And then your employer's using a totally different set of tools, right? And so you're getting all these pieces and they just don't fit together. It is very, very overwhelming. And I think that is why so many of us feel burned out and overwhelmed. And you'll see the research really does point to, we have a lot of tools. We've got all of these micro evidence-based treatments that are designed for, like, okay, you have OCD, we're going to do this one type of therapy, right? Or you have depression or substance use, and we're going to use this one theory or that one theory. But it's overwhelming when you've got a full caseload of 30 clients and they all need these different interventions. It's extremely overwhelming. And so, and most of our clients now don't even fit neatly into EBT little boxes, because most of them are going to have 2 or 3, disorders and or presenting issues or layers of complexity. I remember during the pandemic, I had someone who had been diagnosed with OCD was seeing someone in person at the OCD, Institute of LA, and ended up seeing me, transferring to me during the pandemic. But they actually had three different distinct forms of anxiety-based disorders, with OCD just being one. So we had three different forms of anxiety we had to track. It's really a lot to do therapy in today's world. It's not just you. You're not an imposter, but we just have this there's a number of factors kind of coming together to really make our jobs a lot tougher. I would just say in the last 5 years, if not the last decade. So then let's talk about this development of unifying frameworks. And as you remember, almost all the citations for unifying frameworks were it was 2021, 2022, 2023. There you see a whole bunch of publications in that era. So let's look at before we talk about second wave integration, let's talk about first wave integration. That's what most of us have learned in graduate school. Many of us learned it was evil and bad and wrong. At least I did. I remember I had a professor who called it, instead of eclectic, he goes, being electric. And it was forbidden to just focus on one. I mean, you had to focus on one theory. Doing integration was very much forbidden. But the first wave integration, we have a couple different ways that it happened. The first was theoretical integration, where you create a new coherent theory from two or more forms of therapy. So something like emotionally focused therapy is a good example. You started with attachment theory, you mix in some humanism and some systems therapy, you add those all together, and you end up with emotionally focused therapy. And so there are three very distinct theories. You can see the clear evidence of each, and it's like they mix them together in a recipe. They began doing their research with couples. It's of course expanded to families and individuals, but it's very clear. You can see the theoretical roots. You can see how they put them together. And oftentimes all of our evidence-based treatments are usually some version of theoretical integration developed for a specific population. So this is a very common form of what we're going to call first wave integration. The second is called technical eclecticism. And so this is what my professor hated. The electric therapist, counselors, he would call him. He was one of my counseling educator professors. So this is Mike and Baum you may know him from CBT. He talked about using technical eclecticism, which is you're just using interventions from two or more approaches, and you've just decoupled it from theory. So whatever intervention you think might work, you're going to use it, and you don't worry about whether or not there's this theoretical foundation like adult attachment theory that they have in emotionally focused couples therapy. You just kind of use a lot of different interventions, whatever kind of seems or feels right. And I would say the typical supervision group in today's world will use a lot of technical eclecticism, where you just your supervisor will just tell you different interventions to use based on kind of what they're hearing and kind of this clinical judgment, clinical instinct, intuition, whatever you want to call it. But that's technical eclecticism. Then there's common factors research that looks at these similarities across theories. The intervention, so this is more conceptually kind of understanding the four major components in common factors research. The most frequently cited one is 4 different ones. So that's another version of this, and they're developing more models and having it be more clinically relevant. I love common factors, although like what you do in therapy in the session from that is sometimes, that's getting clearer as they develop those methods. And then the assimilative integration, this is what I always required my grad students to write their papers this way, is you take one theoretical foundation. I used to talk about having one clear epistemology, way of, understanding human psychology and change, one theory of change, and then you integrate techniques from other approaches. And a good example of this is in Bowen intergenerational therapy. They do genograms, right? These family trees. And solution-focused therapists, what they did is they took the concept and the symbolisms, the framework of the genogram, and they assimilated it into solution focus, where they look at the strengths across generations and how, and the strengths and the resilience of the family. So they're taking a Bowen intergenerational that looked more at, triangles and relationship, who's close, who's in mesh, where's the conflict, where's the distance, looking at, relationship patterns. And the solution focused people kind of rework that to focus on strengths and resilience. So that's assimilative integration. So these are the four main ways that, historically our field has done integration. When you research psychotherapists across the globe, the vast majority are actually integrative. They use multiple approaches in one way or another like this. So even though I know in graduate school we all make you pick a theory, right? The truth is we all know the research is very clear that the vast majority of mental health providers are integrative using one of these four methods. So second wave integration is something that's really evolved in the last 5-10 years. It's a newer way, and these are characterized by unification. These are meta-theoretical frameworks. These are big frameworks that are pulling in lots of theories. We're not just combining 2 or 3 theories into a lovely little recipe, or assimilating techniques or just doing technical eclecticism. This is like this big meta-theoretical framework that's pulling from lots of theories, more than just 2 or 3. They are transdiagnostic, so they're not like the evidence-based treatments, because evidence-based treatments are diagnostic specific. And those of you who work with in a traditional outpatient where you're seeing 5-10 different diagnoses in a week, quickly EBTs become overwhelming. So second wave integration models are saying, hey, the average clinician cannot get special, training, $10,000 each, and 20 different EBTs for each population they see. So these second wave are transdiagnostic. They can be used with multiple different presenting issues, multiple different diagnoses, and like many of our clients who have multiple diagnoses, you can then use it with multi-problem clients. There is a systematic treatment selection, meaning that most of these are going to use some kind of systematic approach to identify the best intervention. So it's not like technical eclecticism where you're kind of like going with your gut instinct. There is a system to figure out what is going to be the best match for your client and their problem. So there's this systematic treatment selection. It's not shooting from the hip. And there's a lot of evidence principles of change. So it's looking at, we now have, that's a different workshop I teach, but we have multiple decades of research that have really identified these cross-theoretical principles of change. And we're going to go over some of those actually, because there's a particular second wave model that does that. It's like, what does the research say works across all the different problems, right? Across all the different theories. So there's a whole evidence-based piece to second wave. And then just focusing on the process of change. So this is studying what helps our clients actually change. So what is that process? What things are happening when clients make measurable gains that are sustained? Okay, so this is what second wave integration models are about. And so it's really exciting because, as you can see, when you put all this together, there's strong research base for it all, evidence base for it all, because right now our EBT evidence-based treatments are super focused on a small diagnosis in a small population. These are much broader use, much easier way to integrate the evidence. And you can see having these transdiagnostic approaches, multiple theories, like it makes our job easier. And I think that's really important when you look at the burnout research numbers. So I'm going to highlight 3 of the major second wave integration models that I think are the most developed. There are some really cool ones, and there's some that were like they've been published in a journal article a decade ago and never developed beyond that. But these are the 3 that I think have been applied the most and used the most in clinical practice. And certainly there are other models. So the most, I think, well-developed and the oldest one is what's called the trans-theoretical approach. And we're gonna go over, I'm gonna give you a glimpse of it in just a minute here, but this is based on the stages of change, right? And the type of symptom a person has, right? So intrapsychic versus psychic. And what it does, it creates this framework where it puts in over 20 different theories And so this trans-theoretical approach by Proska and Associates is probably the oldest one, I would say, in the field. Then another one that I find very fascinating, it's been developed by actually a decade or two of research from the American Psychological Association, is this principle of change movement. They have now kind of whittled it down to 39 principles to guide treatment. So it's an evidence-informed, evidence-based, but principles of treatment, like doing these things or what we know is correlated with change. And then today, what you're going to be learning about is the Therapy That Works Unifying framework, which synthesizes 50 different theories. And so what is unique about this unifying framework among these second wave integration, it is probably the most streamlined. There's a single system for doing that you're going to use with all of your clients. And so it's a very synthesized way of working with these theories. But let's take a look at this trans-theoretical approach. Some of you may have learned this, Proska, Di Clemente, and there are a couple other publications. And you can see across the top, and I have shrunk this down, as actually goes across 5 stages normally, with some middle rows and columns. I'm like, whoa, okay, let's simplify it. So I have adapted this to be a little simpler, but you can see they use the stages of change, the pre-contemplative stage, then they look at these middle stages of contemplation and preparation, and then action and maintenance. And so they look at the stage of where is the client when they're coming in. Are they just kind of pre-contemplative? Are they beginning to like contemplate and want to take action, or are they full action mode? And then they look at the type of problem they have. So on the left side, you can see here we have the symptoms and situations, maladaptive cognitions, interpersonal, so relationship. So that's an individual having trouble with other. Usually that's individual having trouble with their relationships, but they're seeking individual treatment. Then you have families and system, the family, couple, system conflict. So normally these models are for 2 or more people in the room. And then they have what they call intrapersonal conflict. So that's within your, psychology. So let's take a look. And so what they've done is they've aligned the different theoretical approaches based on the stage of the change that the client is in and the level of change or the type of change that is needed. And so they basically categorized different therapy models and kind of organize them when to use which one. So they have, you can see here, so motivational interviewing for symptoms and situations in the pre-contemplative stage, Adlerian for maladaptive cognitions, Sullivan therapy for interpersonal, strategic for family systems, which although I would put that more in the action stage, I found that interesting. And then psychoanalytic for intrapersonal conflict. In the contemplative stages, they're using solution focused, right? In the preparation early stages of change, because you do get a lot of buy-in and motivation there. Third wave CBTs like dialectical behavior therapy, mindfulness therapies for maladaptive cognitions, cognitive therapy when they're more in the early stages of change with interpersonal. So that's when you're kind of complaining about outside people. They're using transactional psychology and Bowen therapy for the contemplation stages with Bowen, and using existential interesting for the intrapersonal conflict and that preparation contemplation stages. And then when they move into action, these are when your clients are ready to do something, they are motivated. You've got behavior and exposure therapies for various symptoms and situations. Ellis's REBT, rational and motive behavioral therapy for cognitions, interpersonal psychotherapy for interpersonal problems, structural family therapy for family systems conflict, and using Gestalt and DBT for the intrapersonal conflict, which is interesting. Gestalt and DBT do a lot of the polarity type work. So what Proska has done and with this trans-theoretical model is kind of organize when to use which of these therapy models. When, this is a great way, I think, to learn therapy models. And I do think each of us, it's hard to learn all these models. You're still learning 20 different theories here or whatever it is. And so maybe 15, I guess, 15, 16, something like that. So, and so what I would encourage you to do, wherever you are in your training is, whatever theories you have learned, especially if you've learned a few, to look at where they might fit and figure out what you know and how it could fit into a framework like this. So I think you can play with it. Because I would certainly never do strategic and pre-contemplative stage with a couple or a family system. So, but maybe they're just braver people who put that together for us. Um, let's look at some of these empirical principles of change. So this is another way to do second wave integration, and this is all based on an APA task force that has been working for nearly a decade, I believe, on identifying these empirically based principles of change. The first task force came up with 61. The next one kind of whittled it down to 39. But these are just principles of change that you can use across any theoretical model to promote change in your client. So this is what works, right? So let's look at some of these. The first area they found are client factors. And of course, what they found was that if less clients who have less severe symptoms when they start are more likely to change, as well as those who are more hopeful and motivated. So that's where we can help with that. Therapist factors. So being therapists who can choose the right intervention based on client motivation, which kind of gets us back to that last model. Therapists are really able to reduce resistance, and that is an art. That is an art. And also just therapists who are able to increase functioning and coping with their clients. Then there's just the quality of the therapeutic relationship, and there's this concept of responsiveness. We'll talk more about that. So responsiveness is your ability to, in the moment, second by second, respond in a way very organically that responds to what the client is saying and doing, both verbally and non-verbally. So it's a very highly attuned state. And so this is really a key quality that has been identified in the last decade. I know most of us are trained on empathy. When you learn about empathy, it's pretty clunky when you compare to responsiveness is super fine tuned, where empathy is like identify the underlying emotion of whatever the client is saying, listen, help direct them to the emotion and then put words to that. That's like, it sounds like you're feeling betrayed or, sad or you're grieving, right? So that's relatively straightforward to teach, where responsiveness is a very nuanced art, is the main differences I could say right there. But of course, looking at Carl Rogers' core conditions certainly do come up: the positive regard, congruence, and empathy. Just the alliance, the quality of the alliance, which only clients can really, it only matters what clients think about the alliance, not us. And the ability to repair alliance is also found to be super important in this research. So when there is a rupture, you're able to repair. And that's really why responsiveness is so important, because responsiveness is about being able to pick up really early when clients are not feeling heard, supported, or understood, so you don't have major ruptures in the alliance. So that's really, really key here. And using disclosure in a supportive way where it doesn't take the focus off the client, but in a way that can be supportive. And that's another really tough skill. In terms of interventions, really, they found that if you're going to be using interpretation like you do in psychodynamic work, there really have to be high quality interpretations that really land well with the client. The therapists who give more feedback. So if all you're doing is summarizing, reflecting, change happened when therapists were able to, notice discrepancies, give clients feedback about what they're doing, being flexible as a clinician in how you intervene, being able to promote interpersonal changes, so changing how they relate to others in the outside world, and promoting emotional experiencing effectively, and also creating behavioral change outside of session. So these are the types of empirically based principles of change that they have found through this stream of research as to what works. I'm just going to check in real here. Let's see. I see some comments coming in. Oh my word. Okay. I'm going to see if there are any comments at the bottom. We got a lot going on here. Okay. So, well, thank you. Oh, thank you. So yeah, someone. Oh, I see. I did not. Thank you, Kayleen, for putting that into the chat because you did find the correct place to. Because you know what the default in Zoom is to put my comments in. So if you're interested in joining the simulation after this live session, please do so here. Um, Sorry about that. Okay, very good. Okay, love it, love. Okay, so very, very good. Okay, I see there's a lot going on here. So I'm going to keep going forward. I'm not seeing any clear. Oh, you know what? I'm seeing four in the queue. Let me get four Q&As. Let me do this. Okay. Oh, how do we sign up for the post simulation? I just put that in there. My apologies for doing a bad post there. Okay. So Erica, the simulations are separate from the Laugh Your Way to Licensure course. I'm sorry about that. We weren't able to combine them. Okay. Oh, will the training be put on my internet YouTube channel? There will be a recording posted in the course that you can use to watch this simulation. And Elena is saying, I consider doing strategic because you need the paradoxical interventions. Okay, you're good in asking, that would motivate clients for asking for change while reducing resistance. Okay, I like it, Elena. I like it. You're, I can do strategic, and it's usually my last resort. It's usually not where I start. So I love it. So, but they're clearly strategic can work for some folks. Early pre-contemplative. I love it. I love it. And maybe I'm just a little bit of a wimp who likes to be a little gentler. But yeah, they're gentle ways to do paradox. That's totally fair. That is totally fair. Love it, love it. And there is a so there's okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about the unifying framework and where it came from and how it evolved. So as many of you may know, I've been a textbook author for the last 3 decades, and I've written both about all of the counseling, traditional counseling, psychotherapy theories, as well as family therapy theories, which is total about 50 theories are covered across my 2 textbooks. And when I first started and I decided to become a textbook author and summarize other people's life work, I'm very, very respectful of all. I'm a theory nerd. I love theory. And I really wanted to be respectful because I'm summarizing someone else's life work, for incoming professionals. And I just really wanted to get it right. And of course, I have my preferences, right? Like, I don't like to do strategic in the early phase. I really approached all of these using what's called appreciative inquiry. So what wisdom does each theory have to offer us about the human condition and how to help people change? And so I really came to each theory wanting to find the golden nugget of wisdom that I could use. And trust me, I have used knowledge from all 50 theories. And at this point in my career, I don't know how I would do what I have to do when I see clients without having a whole bunch of theories under my belt. And I really tried to have my therapy textbooks be super practical. That was my unique angle. I have clinical forms, treatment planning, intervention descriptions, step by step. And I really focus on what clients, what the therapists were doing in session, not just how they described it, right? Because there's a lot of different jargon and vocabulary in our field. But when you look at what they're doing, that's a different thing. And so when I looked, like I said, across all the different theories, I had to summarize all the research for all the theories, looking about how they get applied across diagnosis and clinical assessment are in all my books, and then of course integrating social justice and advocacy. And the other piece to all of this is that I've spent over 3 years doing live supervision. That's what the simulations are about, which is really an active form of research. Because boy, when you're working with a team and you've got a client in front of you, you cannot help but notice what works and what doesn't. They come back week to week and what you said either worked or it didn't. And so live supervision becomes this live living laboratory of psychotherapy, and you get very, very direct feedback about what works, what doesn't. It's publicly, observed. And you really do, though, get to refine and notice what works and what doesn't over the years. And certainly I have been humbled But I calculated it the other day. I've probably spent close to 10,000 hours doing live supervision over the last 30 years. And if you didn't get a chance to do it in your grad program, I do. That's why I make it available through these simulations. I also highly recommend you try to find training wherever you can to do the live supervision, because you really learn a lot. And what happened is that these patterns emerged where when you focus on what they do and not what they call it, there's a lot more overlap and similarities, right? So some of my favorite examples are that solution-focused therapists talk about exceptions to problems, and so when they're talking to clients, they're listening for when the problem to exceptions, right? Where narrative therapists are listening for unique outcomes. So when the narrative would have predicted the problem would happen, but it didn't. So theoretically, exceptions, solution-focused exceptions, and narrative unique outcomes, they are theoretically different things. Okay, I totally get that. I am a theoretician. I get it. I'm with them. And when I got my theoretician hat on, I can argue till the cows come home how they're different. However, when you're a therapist sitting in the room, they are functionally the same thing. Can I listen for a time when the problem, we would expect it to have happened, but it didn't, or context where you would expect it to be, but it doesn't happen in this context, in this relationship, or with this teacher, whatever it might be. So that's an example. When I did my last version of the counseling textbook, I was just blown away that every single major school of psychotherapy that is covered in my counseling textbooks evolved to have a postmodern version of it, including CBT, psychoanalytic, humanistic. I was like, wow, that's just kind of weird, right? And then I started noticing that almost every case conceptualization method, from psychodynamic, Jung, Whitaker, Fritz Perls, system, structural, emotionally focused couples therapy, functional family therapy, Bowen, whether it was an evidence-based treatment, the first therapy model ever created, they all had these complementary patterns, these polarities, and that's how they conceptualized. But boy, they called it different things. In fact, most of the jargon comes from calling complementary, polarizing patterns different things. And someday I will write a book on that. That day is not today. Okay. So let's go ahead then and look at the Therapy That Works Unifying framework. So there are 6 main components to this framework, and this is a framework. It's a system of doing that you can use with all of your clients. And we'll go through each one of these. The first is the self of the clinician, so who we are and who we bring to the room, because so much of the research keeps pointing to us. What's weird is that most of our therapy models don't talk that much about us. And when they do, they mostly say, go get your own psychoanalysis and go do your own work and work on your family of origin stuff. Get your own therapy. But there isn't like a systematic way to bring that into the actual training or into the model itself. There's collaborative connecting, which is how I describe the therapeutic relationship and that process of connecting. The 4-level conceptualization is the approach to conceptualizing problems. Then there is using evidence-informed treatment planning, using the research to figure out, what they call systematic treatment selection, and then looking at evidence-informed intervention, kind of using the evidence base to do the treatment selection. And then I think one of the more unique elements of this framework is what I call the 4-level conceptualization of solution and wellness. And this is really about creating long-term wellness. Most theoretical models do not have really well established interventions, protocols, assessment, approaches for assessing what's working and figuring out how to maintain that long term. And I think it's a weakness. We also don't have a whole lot in our field for how do we conceptualize maintaining your mental health in the 21st century? I mean, come on, that is a task and a half. And it's very different, I think, than maintaining your mental health in the 20th century. We have old models that really need to be updated for really the uncertainty and, dare I say, chaos of the 21st century. And so I think wellness And, we can get people feeling better, but maintaining it in the world today is a whole different ballgame. And I really think in mental health, we need to do more to rise to that challenge. Okay. A lot of folks, I see some, there in the chat, I see some dialogue around the live supervision. And yeah, it is expensive. It is an issue. It is, and yeah, it is. But like I said, where you can get it, try to get it. It's also very hard to train faculty and supervisors to be able to deliver it well, because you can do live supervision if you don't have the right person doing it. It doesn't work as well either. But it's certainly something I think we need to be aware of in the field, because that's really how you learn to do this work well. And when we look at a 52% burnout rate in our field, I think part of it is the rate, the amount of live supervision is just gone down, down, down. I mean, I did 6 hours of live supervision in my graduate program. There are very few people left who get that in their graduate program. And plus, we used to be able to go to conferences and get lots of live supervision, watch the masters do therapy. It is exceedingly rare, and it is true. It is the more expensive trainings where that still exists, and it's a problem in our field. And I understand there were lawsuits, and that's why we don't do the live sessions at conferences anymore. So there's a lot of legal limits that have made it more expensive. Live supervision is more expensive. So it's a problem, but on the other hand, having 52% of the workforce burnt out and 38% wanting to leave is also a very expensive problem also. So we need to really be looking for opportunities where we, and how to make that happen. And that's why I try to make it happen in my little institute a couple times a year, because it's expensive. It's expensive. That is for sure. And that's why it's been one of the first things to get cut. And that's why, like I said, if you ever get a chance to get it, I know people shy away from it because they get nervous and scared. And I get that too, because I hate it too. I hate doing, the observation and role plays. That's all anxiety provoking. So I say that because yes, it is expensive. It's also anxiety provoking. But if you get an opportunity, push yourself, because it is worth every minute. And the other thing I will say is that this model has really focused on making the therapeutic process humanizing, right? And that this human connection truly is the key to change, and that it's a very transformative process. And I think in this time of AI, of so much uncertainty and so much polarization, with so much isolation and loneliness post-pandemic, that we need to make sure that we create a process that reconnects people with their humanity. I don't know how else to explain it. I would say it's almost, for me, it feels almost spiritual at times. It is a very profound work. And yes, we need to integrate all the research, but we want to make sure we don't do that in a very cold, detached, mechanical way. It's also why I'm very concerned where people sometimes see, 30 or more clients, or even 30 high crisis clients in a week. It's hard to be emotionally present for that. So even just our workloads, I think, are certainly not doing us or our clients any good, and it's a problem we need to talk about. So the heart of this model is, yes, we're integrating all these theories and we're integrating all the research, but the core of it is what I call a humanizing process for both us and our clients. And we really help clients reconnect with what matters, to really find, the joy in being alive is where I think we need to get our clients to. And I find that this work fuels my heart and soul as I'm helping other people reconnect with what matters. So I want to look at the key to the framework is what I'm going to call turning knowledge inside out. I don't know how else to describe it. So what this framework does is that we are going to enter the client's world and their meaning-making system, how they understand it. And then once we spend time, we linger, we ask lots of what sound like silly questions at times, right? But we really take time to understand how this person is experiencing their world and doing our best to leave our assumptions and frameworks at home, outside of that. And then once we really understand how they make sense of their world, then we bring in our theoretical knowledge, our interventions, our research, our evidence base, so that it plugs in naturally to their worldview. Okay. And so we're challenging their worldview. Trust me. It doesn't mean we're not, but we're working within it. And it's just so much faster, so much easier, and so much more effective. Because and this does have a postmodern approach or foundation. It's got a constructivist lens, but it ensures that the process really is important and resonates with the clients. And what happens is that that the clients, what we're talking about really resonates, and you will see that your clients, when you're able to do this, your clients always follow through on on the ideas, or they apply. They're coming up with most of the ideas. Is the beautiful part of all of this, and that this is super critical for working with social justice. Types of issues, that you spend the time, because even sometimes people who are social justice advocates can come in with a lot of templates and assumptions, and you really need to slow down and understand your client's reality. A good example is LGBTQ, and I'll just use the example movement. I remember, back during the pandemic, I was working with one of my clients who has identified, with various LGBTQ identities over the years. But their experience was being asked to give their pronouns because they identified female but looked very androgynous, that it was extremely marginalizing. It's like, I have been in this community for 15 years and now I feel like I don't have a community. Where other people were finding, saying the pronouns was really liberating and it was validating. And so here we have two people in the same community, opposite responses to the same form of advocacy. And so really slowing down and listening, not making assumptions, is just really important, because you just don't know until you ask. And even when you have you've done your research, you have you have your heart in the right place, you're trying to be really an advocate, to be a positive force in someone's life, you could totally miss the boat. And like my client says, she goes, I don't tell most people this. Thank you for allowing me to say this out loud and not get attacked, right? And so really, even when you are an advocate, realizing what you think that your client might need may not be what they think they need. And you need to ask not knowing questions, be curious long enough to really understand how they're experiencing their world. So let's start with the self of the clinician. And so there are these 6 areas of wellness that, that when you train in this model, this is where we start. We start with you. Like, let's get you in a process. None of us are ever going to be perfect, right? I never have all 6 areas of this in my life. As soon as you get one kind of working, another one seems to fall apart. I don't know why, right? It just seems the way life is. So you're always it's like juggling these balls, and you can kind of get one going pretty good, and then you got to go over here and deal with that one. And so realizing that being part of this human journey, you're never perfect. You're always in process, and things are always shifting up, and that's okay. We don't have to be perfect. In fact, there is no perfection in being human. And so that's part of, I think, important for us to understand. And so I think the first step to doing this work well is really putting on our oxygen mask and developing a lifelong personal development plan to reduce our burnout and increase our confidence. And so, I have folks, in my program, they all identify some kind of goal in one of these areas, and we break it down to a 1 to 5 minute habit that you're going to do 5 days a week. It's really tiny. We practice using the same types of interventions we might use on our clients. And what is beautiful, though, is how and I've been doing this now for decades, having my little set of micro goals and micro habits I develop over the years, is that you really get better at understanding human psychology, what it takes to change, what it takes to just make a tiny little change, right? I want you to meditate 2 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That is a huge ask. That is a lifestyle change. That is massive, right? And so as you begin to practice on yourself, you really get good at understanding how to develop interventions, and you make change and progress, and you build your confidence. And so I've had people do incredible things over I have this 5-month course where I teach this model. People have repaired relationships, got, back into exercise, got going back, spiritual practices back, rebuilt relationships, all sorts of things, 1 to 5 minutes a day. And when you're able to make progress in your own life with the type of things you're asking your clients to do, that sense of imposter syndrome really goes away because you're walking your walk. And that is important, right? Because this really builds both confidence and life satisfaction. I don't like seeing 52% of mental health professionals are burnt out, 46 are anxious, and 30 something percent are clinically depressed, right? I want us to use all of our tools to make ourselves as happy and as at peace and to build life satisfaction. So learning to practice what you preach, really developing your own happiness in your own life, it really helps protect against the burnout, right? Developing healthy relationships in your own life, even managing time and money better, right? That really is powerful in creating a life that you love. And I think it's not fluff, it is not an afterthought. We got to take care of all of our clients first. That clients do take precedence at times, but we need to also develop a lifestyle that supports us because it enables us to really know how to guide our clients to lifelong wellness. So he definitely, yeah. How anyone does this work without self-development is perplexing to me. Absolutely. So yeah. So yes, the joy of being alive. I love it. I love it. So that's first we do that. And then the next piece is what I call collaborative connecting. It's the therapeutic relationship. And many of us in graduate school, and I still think every grad program should start with Carl Rogers' core conditions and those basic skills. But I just want to say that, and many times people feel like, yeah, I have empathy, we have good rapport with my client. That's great, okay? We are talking about something a bit differently here when we talk in these second wave integration. We look at the research on, how highly effective clinicians connect with their clients. There's a different quality. It is subtle. It is becoming measurable, but it is subtle, and it's more than just the Carl Rogers. And I've tried to train people on how to do this by what I call entering the client's meaning-making system. And I use this metaphor of the holodeck. And the holodeck is it is from the Star Trek Enterprise probably 20 years ago. And it was this it was this recreation room that was a computer-generated 3D holographic world, sort of what you're seeing on the slide here, that the user programmed, right? And so why I like this metaphor, why metaphor doesn't work is VR, someone else has programmed those apps that you are seeing, okay? In the holodeck, the user programmed the world. They created the characters and their personalities. They programmed, the animals, the environment. And so, and realizing that in a client's holodeck, in their meaning-making system, what is good, what is safe, what is preferred, can be very, very different. And so I think of it this way, in the client's world, right? The gazelles can be the apex predators, the most dangerous thing in their world. And the lions can be these cute, cuddly, prey animals and be very safe in their world, right? And rocks can float in the sky, clouds can always be found on the ground, and you just don't know till you ask. And this is a lifelong process of learning how many biases and assumptions are embedded in every word we say. And you can't totally get out of yours, but you can learn as you're going blindfolded through your client's meaning-making system. You're blindfolded, you kind of have to hold onto their arm, and your only tool is to ask questions like, what's this over here? And is this always found, next to that? And do these two things tend to always happen together? And do rivers always float in the air here, right? What's the scariest thing in this world? So when you learn that humans make sense of life in such different ways, it's a very humbling, if you're not regularly humbled by your clients, if they don't tell you that you are wrong on a regular basis, you aren't doing this, okay? And so there's this very profound curiosity, not knowing, not assuming. We all feel like we don't assume. Most of the people in this field try not to make assumptions about others. But this is going to a very different level of curiosity and not knowing. And it's true. I would say about half the time, yeah, what I thought the client, that, okay, rocks don't float in this world, check. That they don't float in my world either. That we have similar meanings, but half the time they're totally unexpected. Okay. And that's how you know you're doing this right. Because if your client's meaning and interpretation is always the same as yours, you're not curious enough, you're not digging deep enough to understand how they put all the parts of make sense of life through their filter. So this is the hardest thing to teach, and that's what I'm going to focus on in the simulation today. It kind of plugs into this responsiveness, which we were talking about, which is this moment to moment kind of connecting and tracking clients. And in interpersonal neurobiology, if you're familiar with the work of Dan Siegel and Shore and others here, they actually talk at a neurological level. This type of connecting is measurable. It's like our brain waves sync up. There's this neural resonance and attunement where people feel felt. There is literally like an attunement that happens that you can feel physiologically with clients. And what I have found is when you learn to connect with people this way, that 80% of change just comes from me asking these kind of silly questions about their holodeck and how they make meaning and, what happened and how they interpreted it. I call it getting the movie, what happened, the behavioral description, like what a video camera would see, and how they made sense of it. And I just track step by step, slowly going through, and you'll see they will get insights. They wouldn't, most of us we just interpret and we don't think about, why do I interpret it that way? Why does when my husband goes, why do I feel this panic go up? Where did that come from? How do I connect that? What am I thinking is actually going on? And so, learning to track all of that. And what you'll find, what people tell me all the time is like, oh my God, this is so much easier. And you get these profound insights in a short amount of time. And all the therapists would say is, just kind of tracking this and, can you tell me a little bit more about this? Can you tell me more about that sigh and, where that comes from? And so you're just kind of asking pretty simple questions, honestly, but you're very attuned. You're tracking the meaning. You're in their world. You're not in their world. It is intense mental work as a clinician. If I use 100% of my brain power with clients, I don't have time to think about theory. I don't have time to think about my next question. I am just trying to understand their world the way they do, put all those pieces together, and it should take 100% of your brain power to do this. So kind of moving on, in terms of case conceptualization, what we're doing is we're taking 50 different theories and we're synthesizing it, right? How do you do this? And I did this by using very neutral, minimal theoretical language, very simple language, and a very easy to use format, because when you are attuned the way you need to be attuned to with clients, you don't have bandwidth to jump into complex theory and jargon. So you'll see the terms are easy because connection and attunement is 98% of where your brain is during session. I call it the 4-level case conceptualization, and it uses, and we look at this problem symptom cycle, which has 4 levels, each with 2 dimensions. But let's start with the cycle. So this is the most complex part of the model. So many of you are familiar with this. You probably have seen it around domestic violence. Those of you who are trained in more systemic approaches, classic systems theories uses this. And this is where you start with homeostasis or normal, like symptoms are at their lowest. So like with a panic attack, there'd be no panic. With depression, it's your least depressed moments of the day. There's symptoms rising, tension rising if it's interpersonal conflict. You have the symptom at its worst, and then tension subsiding, returning to normal. So there's this cycle that we track, the symptom cycle, and you can do this both with interpersonal. It's one assessment for everything. So for intrapsychic, whether you're working with depression, anxiety, trauma, ADHD, whatever the symptom is, you're going to track it. And also for interpersonal, so relationship conflict, conflict with your partner, your family members, your boss, co-workers, right? So you're tracking this cycle for all symptoms. That in itself makes life really easy. And what you'll find is for diagnosis is always, you're going to get that. Diagnosis comes from assessing the problem at its height, at its worst. You'll be listening very carefully for the clues to solutions and interventions comes from as things subside. And then you'll notice you're going to target intervention and change. You're going to do it at the early part of the cycle. So whether you're dealing with depression, anxiety, ADHD, PTSD, couple conflict, your diagnosis all happens, your clues, and then where you target interventions. This cycle does it all, and it's really it's a lot of information you get, and it's very robust in working with your clients. Then there are 4 levels that you're going to assess to this cycle. The first is behaviorally. So if you had a video camera, what would you see? The next is the emotion level, and we look at both, attachment emotions as well as expressed emotions like anger, disappointment, sadness. Then you have the cognitive level, looking at both, beliefs, schemas from traditional cognitive therapy, as well as looking at identity narratives, family schemas, family beliefs, family of origin. And then finally, we look at the societal level. So that's looking at dominant discourses. It's looking at cultural gender patterns, what's happening in society right now. So you assess this pattern, the symptom, looking at all 4 levels. And this is really where the integration happens. Very briefly, this model does get more complex. I'm keeping this short training. I'm trying to keep it as simple. So when you look at the different therapeutic models, at the behavioral level, you'll see obviously behavioral therapies as well as a lot of the systemic family therapies will focus on what pattern is happening between people. The emotional level is dominated by humanistic experiential. Some psychoanalytic approaches really focus on this level too, but humanistic approaches are looking at that symptom cycle at the emotional level. That's what they're tracking. The cognitive level is obviously cognitive therapies. Also postmodern solution therapies are looking at those stories, those narratives. That is cognitive. As well as insight-oriented psychodynamic is very cognitive. It's focusing on that level. And then you have the societal level, which is the postmodern dominant narratives, feminist, multicultural theories. So 50 theories get synthesized into these 4 levels. And so every client, every problem gets analyzed and filtered through these 4 levels across that cycle, which gives you this super rich way to conceptualize what's going on with your clients. In terms of evidence-informed treatment planning and intervention, so once you have this rich description of what's going on with your clients, you look about what the research says should work for your clients. There's certain problems where the research is really clear. Things like OCD, phobias, trauma avoidance symptoms, that's exposure therapies. So trauma has research gives us a lot of guidance. Treatment-resistant depression has very specific guidance. Couple and family, only certain things work. Adolescence, psychosis, bipolar, existential types issues. We have more flexibility, right, with generalized anxiety, depression, adjustment disorders. So you filter your clients' issues and then you match, you use interventions from the level that the research says are going to be most effective for you. And then making change last, I think, it's an underdeveloped area in our field, and it's really most important for clients who experience marginalization. Because if you feel like, if you are marginalized, and that's either little m or big M marginalization, even if you're just the odd one out in your family, that's a form of marginalization, and you will not have as many people kind of reflecting back the changes, the new identity to really solidify the positive changes that you're making. So the more marginalized a person feels in their world, big M or little m, the more they need this solidifying of gains. And there are 3 basic components. The first is equity versus happiness. And so the long-term goal is equity and really agency in today's world. We do the same assessment around positive outcomes to solidify those behaviors. And then we do what's called the 5 pillars of wellness. So in terms of equity and happiness, I've done some training and I will do more on this. I really think in the 21st century, pursuing happiness is not a good role model for us anymore. We need to help our clients develop equanimity, which is the ability to move gracefully with life's ups and downs. It really builds in resilience and a sense of agency in an increasingly uncertain, unstable world. Equanimity is moving gracefully. And if you're trying to have a clients achieve this like static goal of happiness, or I want my life to look this way, that's not going to be very sustained in this world. And so we're not setting our clients up for long-term mental health. In this model, you also use this exact same 4-level assessment, but instead of the symptom at its worst, you're going to have the consciously chosen improved solution behavior, or self-talk or whatever it is at that solution. So you use the exact same method you use to assess problems, you use to solidify gains. And this is a really emotional process. Some people are like, what are you going to do? The client achieved their goals this week. I'm like, oh, these are the best sessions. I mean, and they're deep, they're emotional. You are restoring someone's sense of self. These are very deep. These are tearful sessions where we get into a lot of ironically, a lot of the deepest childhood wounds come up when we go through. I see myself being able to do this, which is so different than what I was taught by, in my childhood or from my trauma. And these are deep emotional sessions that are very cathartic, very powerful, and really cement change. And so very powerful, especially if a client experiences marginalization. And then finally, we work on the 5 pillars of wellness. I use those micro habits you learned at the very beginning. And we learn it because, the research is so clear. Diet, exercise, sleep, supportive relationships, and healthy coping really help with long-term mental health. And so making sure our clients have a robust set of habits, not just tools. I want habits. I want daily habits that maintain their wellness so that my clients leave me with the capacity for lifelong mental health. So where to go from here? I do think there is this shift that is happening that's going to be inevitable. We have too much information. Our clients are very complex. You need 50 theories, I think, to work with today's clients and to navigate the uncertainty in the world today. So I really think this is where we are going. And these approaches that really enhance our humanity, both of our clients and ourselves, it prevents our burnout. And I think it really fills the need that humanity has, where there is such heightened anxiety, loneliness right now, that this type of model that really enhances humanity is critical. The handouts are going to be available on the Therapy That Works Institute. So you can log in there. You'll be getting an email with that link. For those of you who are interested in learning more, I want to just invite you to join. We are starting a cohort, mastering this model. That responsiveness I've found, we really have to sit down and just see clients together over and over. For those who are interested, you can, enrollment is opening today, and there's 20% off, and the coupon code is intro26. You can sign up for as little as $146 a month. I'm giving, for the first 3 who register, there's one-on-one mentoring with me, a 25-minute session worth $200. So if you want to, if you've been waiting to do this training, you're ready, now would be a great time, because the first 3 folks today who attend today's session can get that. And registration does end February 3rd. It's a 5-month course. It takes about an hour and a half a week. You can listen to most of the recordings. We meet twice a month live, where we do clients. You watch me do demonstrations, and we, and we do case consultation with your clients. So it is, teaching you this method. It's a 45-hour total continuing education process that really is designed to be both transformative personally as well as professionally. I think those two things really go together. And it's real important to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take some questions here that are coming in. If you've got more questions, you can put them in the Q&A. I will start there. I know some are coming in the chat. Elena's asking, have I published research about the 10,000 hours of supervision? I do have a supervision article out. It's in a book chapter, I think with Ken Hardy and Toby. Toby is, I have my supervision article there. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. So they're asking for a discount if you sign up for more than one simulation. Erica, you can email friendlyhelp.com and I can make that happen. That's a fair request. How can a person keep up with school and the training at the same time? I will say most of the people in the class are also in school, and that what they find, not most, but there are many people in this course who are in their graduate programs, and it kind of teaches you how to do the therapy, which most graduate programs are so crammed with all their different theories and research that they're teaching you, that the time, space, and budget for live supervision isn't there. And this is really a course that teaches you how to do therapy. And so, and whether you've been doing this for years, I have people who have 20 to 30 years experience in these courses. I have people have yet to see their first client, because it's a totally different type of training. I don't know how else to say it. And so that would be definitely a course that, and people have told me that it makes graduate school easier when they're in it, because they just know how to do therapy. It is a crash course on how to do therapy well, and without all the jargon, and it's just what to do. And so if you're in a place in your career, either from burnout, because you're seeing 30 clients and you're just overwhelmed, you're in private practice and wondering if you're doing it right, or if you're just starting out in graduate school or internship and just wanting a lot more practical guidance, you're welcome to come join me. And but if not, I really hope this unifying framework helps you see, wherever you are in your career and wanting to train, that you can see that there is it's inevitable, I think, if you're going to do therapy very well without burning out in the 21st century, we're going to have to move to these second wave frameworks that synthesize, that put it all together, because our clients are too complex. I've been using existential therapy in the last 10 years in a way I never hardly had to. I probably used it 10% of the time in the first 20 years of my practice. I use it every day now with most of my clients, getting through the stress that people are experiencing today, and that uncertainty and the existential uncertainty that we're experiencing in today's world. It's unprecedented. And so you need to know how to stabilize your clients behaviorally, emotionally, cognitively, and even making sense of what's going on in society. You need all of this, and you need it in a simple way that doesn't burn you out. And I think, we do have so many tools. We have so much research. And so I think it's so powerful to be able to pull it all together in a streamlined way that doesn't burn you out. Okay. Oh, thank you, Rob. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh, so Rob took the Laughter Way to Licensure course. I do have a licensure course that gets you through. Thank you, Rob, for sharing that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Oh yeah, so Lisa's saying there are practicum sites that offer in vivo supervision where your supervisor has a microphone in your ear. Yes, there's some behind the windows, and even just watching your videos. I mean, even that is great. At least try to get that. And I would always be shocked that I'd have to force my students to get it, and they would not get it when it was offered to them. I'm like, no. This is the most valuable thing you can do. Go show up for it. Get every ounce of supervision. I'd have students, I don't want you, do I have to present my video again? I'm like, oh, you're missing it. So definitely go. There are ways, if you seek out live supervision, you will find it. It is the most valuable thing you can do. So thank you, Lisa, for saying that. Thank you. Yep. Currently, yeah, just stay organized as best as possible. So Maria's saying, yeah, doing a workshop just on the how to maintain long-term mental health. That, especially in today's world, I could do one on uncertainty as well, just dealing with uncertainty. I think there's a lot going on, just dealing with reading and hearing the news, right? If you're having trouble logging in, you can go to friendlyhelp@dianegayhart.com, and we will figure out how to get you logged in. But if you go to the login page, let me put that in. I have all these coupons. I got the coupon code is here. If you want to join, and if you do join, let me know. Put your name in the comments or the Q&A. And then here is to get your handouts. The handouts are not up yet. I'll be sending you an email getting all that up today. The handout, when I get everything up, I will email you today, but that's where you go. And that login page, you can reset your login, and just make sure you use the email that you used to register for the class, because a lot of you have 2 accounts. I know that. I see a question coming in here. I'll check this out. Yeah, the quiz is going, all of that will be available, later today. So I will be getting that out to you in an email. So check your email for the login, but just so you have it, this is the place where you'll find it. And there is the coupon code intro 2026 if you're interested in joining the Therapy That Works. It's a master class. It's 5 months, but you will learn how to do this work well wherever you are in your career. So awesome. Okay. So I'm going to just check in the chat here. We got that in. Cool. So Jen was able to get in. Awesome. Great. Thank you, thank you. I'm glad you all are enjoying it. Appreciate it. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yeah, the in vivo training, if you can get that, really is amazing. Okay, Angela's testing in December and currently taking Laugh Your Way to Licensure. Yes, Yvonne was late to the party. Yes, this will be posted in the course probably by the end of today. You'll get an email when it's all up there. Thank you again, Rob, for the shout out. Okay, yes, I like the workshop on health. I like it. I like it. I have so many workshops in my head and books I want to write. I wish I had a little more time. Thank you, thank you. I'm glad everyone seemed to really enjoy this. Yes, the video will be available afterwards. You will get a copy of all the slides, and you'll be able to watch the recording as well. Yep. Okay. Very cool. Hopefully I got most of these questions. You can repost your questions if I've been reading, there are a lot of comments, so I'm trying to. The VIP training is recording. Yeah, so if you're taking the VIP live simulation, we'll be joining in about 20 minutes. And yes, that is also recorded, and that's a great one. A lot of people will re-watch that. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jean. Looks like you're in Canada. And we still love our Canadian and European colleagues, most of us. And you guys, yeah, it's been a tough time here reading the news. But thank you. I'm glad you really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Bren said your theme of pursuing what matters and the joy of being alive is always evidence in your presence. Thank you, Bren. And that's really what I try to bring and teach, and to empower everyone who goes through all of my classes, whether we're laughing our way to licensure or really mastering the art of psychotherapy and the Therapy That Works course. I just feel like we are so privileged to get to study what we study, and we need to do a better job in this field. And I'm trying to do a little part in my corner of the universe to really make it joyful work for us. We should not be this burnt out, and to really be able to make a difference. I mean, we live in really difficult times. It's hard, I think, for most of us to read the news. And I know that when I go to work and make a difference in my clients' lives, I help them navigate these crazy times in ways that deepen their sense of being human, that connect them with a deeper sense of joy and a sense of being alive, and a sense of having agency and choice, and to really, there's still ways to find meaning in this life. And in some ways, all of the craziness around us invites us to dig in deeper to what matters most, to find more meaning, to find inner peace. Because boy, you have to fight to find inner peace in the world right now. And so, and that makes us better at doing it. So there's this weird paradox. I told you, those complementary realities, right? All of that stress, all of the stress, crisis, and even trauma, right? Post-traumatic growth. Whew, we've got opportunities, all of us, for post-traumatic growth right now. And so, and we are very much invited to reflect on deep existential issues at this time in history. And you can do all of this with a lot of anxiety and sinking into hopelessness, or you can really dig in and we can join together and find ways to navigate this. And so I do try to create spaces in all of my classes that lift us up, because we need to stay lifted up. We need to lift each other up. We need to lift our clients up. We need to be I see us as a light in dark times. And that's really what I try to do with doing all of my work. And like I said, Hopefully you found something uplifting in today's training that you can go and use with your clients. If you want to learn more with me, I certainly invite you to do that. We have a good time in all my classes. That's just part of the process. And to leave, people leave my course saying they feel, personally having grown a lot as well as professionally. I mean, able to help their clients, but also just feeling more confident and being less stressed out. And I think that's really important. We all spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money getting these degrees, this license, maintaining this license, coming to trainings like this, right? And so making sure that we enjoy what we do. It's a privilege, and there really is a way to do this work easily and well. And that's really what I try to share in my trainings. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm looking forward, for those of you, if you still want to join the simulation, which is going to start in about 18 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and invite I'll put that link up one more time. That's the simulation. The CE and handout, I'll be sending you your worksheets. And right here, you are going to, if you're interested in joining, do the intro. And so if you are interested, like I said, if you want to do this, go ahead and join today. The first 3 people get a special one-on-one session with me. And that will, certainly, let's see if, where we are with all of this. Oh, wait. Will the YouTube repost today? Yes, it will. Or the recording of this will repost today. Does a taxonomy of the 500 theories exist? Norcross is the one who came up with that number. And he's done a lot of work in the area of these second wave theories. But I don't know if he actually listed them all out. So yes, so absolutely, Norcross's research, but you're right, we should work on that. But that is the number that Norcross came up with. And so, yeah, very exciting. And let's see what we got here. Okay, very exciting. Let's see, so I'm just looking here. I think I've got my 3 winners. Let's see, I think the 3 winners, if you are still here, is, I don't know, I don't see the name. It's Magpie Fortin at Yahoo. I guess I should say you guys, your emails are baffling me. Your emails are baffling me. Let's see what I got here. Let me see if I can pull up names. Okay, Maggie Fortin, looks like you are going to get a free session with me. And let's see. We got Angelique Jackson. You're going to get one. And it looks like, let's see here. Elena, congratulations. And all the early birds, if you're listening, anyone who's in the early bird class, your early birds all get it. So you will get to, to join me. So for a free one-on-one mentoring session. Elena, I see you have your hand raised. And I don't know, do you want me to unmute you? I'm going to unmute you, Elena. I normally don't do this. Hi, Elena.
Hello, thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
Yay!
You helped me very much to get my license in 2021.
Awesome! Congratulations! Awesome! And did you just signed up?
Thank you.
Yay! Thank you, thank you. Did you have a question, or do you want to just say thank you?
Just I want to say thank you because you have helped me so much, and this talk was so beautiful. This conference, this presentation is wonderful. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome, and I'm so excited you're in the course. It's a beautiful journey. I mean, all I can say is I feel better when I go. I feel better when I go to the therapy that works unifying framework. I have fun. We lift each other up. It's a beautiful community, I will say that. So I'm so excited to have you in there and take your practice to the next level. So, and congratulations on getting your license. It's a beast of an exam. So happy to take you on that journey as well. And so thank you for trusting me with your professional journey. I can't wait to get you started.
Thank you.
Awesome. You are welcome. Okay, folks, I am going to go ahead. I see a few more. Okay. Oh, there is a buy 2 get third one free. Yes, that I think that there is a a deal going on. You know what? I've actually hired people to help me who are actually good at what they do. And so, yes, we got a nice deal going on for the live simulations. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Speaking of live simulation, I'm going to get there. I wish the best to everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your day with Sunday one half of the globe, Monday on the other half of the globe. And it's just nice also to have a global audience together. Okay, you be well.